Greetings and welcome to In-Depth on Dike and Rostant. I'm very happy to have this conversation because normally when we talk about labor and we have opportunities to have these sorts of conversations around Labor Day, for some reason, one reason or the other, we have some of the more popular names who rise to the surface of the conversation. We're going to do it a little different this time around, and we're very happy to have Dr. Saadiqa Khan. She's the program Dean of Interdisciplinary Studies at the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. You want to stay tuned for this one. Dr. Khan, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing, ma'am?
Very well, Dike. How are you? All is well?
Yes, and I'm very excited because one of the things we have at this point in time on TTT is a Woman Power Wednesday.
Okay.
So having the opportunity to speak to people like, speak to people or speak about the work of people like Clotil Walcott is one of the things I'm very happy about. But let's set the context for a start in terms of the fact that depending on who it is you listen to, apparently there were only male trade unionists. Is only man doing these things. Yes, set us on the right track, please.
So basically, Clotil Walcott is a person that I would like to define as the champion for domestic workers, not only for Trinidad and Tobago, but also the work that she did was instrumental in helping to create a better quality of life for the domestic workers abroad. And the reason why I'm speaking to this is that the work that she did and the work that her daughter did and continues to do was instrumental in the adoption of the ILO Convention C-189, which deals with legitimizing domestic work as work. Now, the reason I really think that Clotil needs to get more attention is because she was a pioneer. She was initiating conversations about labor issues way ahead of her time, things that people were not willing to entertain. So I just, if I may be permitted, to just give a quote that really resonates with me in terms of how she saw what her job was. So to quote her from a 1984 gathering that she did in London, she says, "Women everywhere pay a cruel price for the unpaid servitude in the global kitchen. We pay with poverty, overwork, dependence on men, and some of us pay with our lives." And I think, Dike, that in a nutshell encapsulates what Clotil wanted to do in terms of raising the profile of women in labor. And I think for the most part, the work that she did in terms of beginning and starting Nude in 1974 came out of the fact that she saw that there was sexism and classism in the trade union movement, in activist movements, and issues were being either, how can I say, they were being ignored or they were being recategorized as issues that were not connected to labor. So let me give you an example. When she was working in the Canning's plant prior to 1970, she tried to bring an issue, a labor issue involving a pregnant woman to the union at the time. And the union refused to deal with it, saying that this was not a labor grievance, that it was a woman's issue. And she was enraged because she said, if this is not a labor grievance, then what is? And she was pointing out at that point to everyone there that this is not just about a woman's issue, it is a labor issue. And it is that dissatisfaction with the kind of patriarchy and misogyny that she was seeing in the labor movements that inspired her to form Nude in 1974 with a number of other comrades. And I think in terms of the other conversations that she was having, Dike, in 1982, prior to that to that statement that I just made, quoted from her, she was talking about issues that were affecting Caribbean women that people were not willing to entertain or probably weren't even thinking about at the same time. So, for example, at a 1982 Wages for Work campaign that she attended, she spoke about the fact, and I just want to quote her again, if that's okay. She spoke about this. She said, rape does not only occur in the street, but in the home also. Women have been emigrating, even committing suicide because of the violence of husbands and boyfriends. And she was talking about this at a rally that was dealing with protecting women who would have been considered out of the mainstream, whether they were sex workers, whether they were women with disabilities. And she said, listen, you also need to look at what's happening with Caribbean women. This is why they were emigrating. All right. In 1982, people were not entertaining or willing to entertain the conversation that rape could happen in that context within the home. So that's why I say she is a pioneer. She is a champion before her time. And even though she has become associated with the cause for domestic workers, as the code just shows, she was also very much concerned with domestic violence and violence against women as a whole. And I think in that way, we need to really show the appreciation for the issues that she was trying to bring to the fore at that time.
Well, you're speaking, Dr. Khan, and my paws are raising because it also begs the question, how can you separate these issues? Because to me, separating these issues is inserting artificial distinctions because everything is tangibly interwoven with others. And you use the word nude twice. That stands for the National Union of Domestic Employees, as you
Yes.
said, created in 1974. Really
Mm-hmm.
something that is visionary because sometimes people don't see because the status quo is such that you're just kind of programmed not to see. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of saying, okay, well, one, this is wrong, that is one thing. But to say this is wrong and I am going to do something about it is literally a revolutionary act because sometimes it feels as though you have people moving kind of like leaves on the surface of water, just wherever the water takes them, they go, as opposed
And the
to
thing
raging
is,
against that.
Clotil was a woman who had just primary education. And despite that, what she was able to demonstrate is that you don't need tertiary education to become a champion, to become an activist, to fight for a cause. And the thing about it too is that as we're speaking about her formation of the formation of Nude, I also want to mention how inclusive that union was because in the bulletin that went out in 1974 regarding the formation of it. I just want to speak, and I mean, Professor Rhoda Reddock brought it out when she was doing her own work on Clotil. She says in the bulletin announcing its formation, it stated calling all persons in the capacity of cooks, kitchen helpers, maids, butlers, seamstresses, laundresses, barmen, babysitters, chauffeurs, messengers, yardmen, and household assistants. And basically, she is saying, listen, we are willing to represent the cause of low income workers, not just only a specific. So, in other words, then domestic workers are broadly defined. And I think that inclusivity is something that also needs to be appreciated in relation to the work that Nude, has been doing. And last year made 50 years since Nude has been doing this advocacy work. And I don't think that enough is being done to showcase that work. In fact, Clotil also accused the media of complicity of ignoring the workers' plight because I remember there was a clip that I saw of her at a meeting and she was saying that if I was a middle class feminist, she said everything that they said would have been printed on these pages. She said, I sent out 4 messages talking about the cause of the domestic workers. And she said, not to up to date, none of that has been printed. So she was calling out everyone. And I think too, and Ida takes up this mantle very nicely with Nude. They attribute the fact that a lot of the attention not being paid to the cause of domestic workers is that the people who are complicit in it are the same people who are considered, as Ida LeBlanc would have said, high society women. So she said it is the high society women who are the ones who have the domestic workers. They're the ones who have the helpers. And she says they don't assist us in our cause because guess what? They are part of the problem. Ida made a really important quote in another interview, and she was saying that slavery still exists in the household. It hasn't gone away, it exists in the household. And that's I mean, it brings to the fore the contradiction that exists still today, Dike, in the fact that despite the legal achievements that Clotil was able and Nude was able to bring about in 1982 and in 1995, there's an important contradiction that remains. And I just want to bring it up because it is something
But even before you get to that important contribution, let us take a short break because
sure.
as it is, we already will have a big half and a small half. So
Yes.
I don't want to make you rush that answer. So stay with us. So we are speaking with Dr. Saadiqa Khan, literally about a raft of issues, but we're doing so through the prism or the jump-off point of the work of Clotil Walcott and her efforts through NUD, the National Union of Domestic Employees. Stay with us. We'll return after this. Welcome back. We are speaking with Dr. Saadiqa Khan. Very happy to be having this conversation. And the premise, we're looking at Clotil Walcott, primary school education, legal achievements, and regional, dare say international reach in spite of, and it's just validating the point that plenty times common sense make before book sense. But in terms of the work that still needs to be done, you're making a point, and I ask you to go in on that now. Thanks, Dr. Khan.
So in 1995, the legislation that was passed called the Unremunerated Work Act, which allows for the counting of unwaged work in national statistics, actually brought up that contradiction because what we have now, Dike, is that while unpaid domestic work is officially considered work according to that act, paid domestic workers are not officially workers under the Industrial Relations Act. And that's the important contradiction that exists up to today and what NUD is still fighting for. Because guess what? If you are not registered as a worker, it means then that you don't have collective bargaining rights. You don't have the ability to seek legal redress against delinquent employers, against arbitrary dismissals. You don't have access to the kinds of social protections that you need. So as it is right now, NUD helps those as much as they can, but they don't have the redress as other workers. And that remains a fundamental problem to date. Because even though, yes, we have the 1982 Act, all right, which gave certain kinds of conditions, still, if you are not officially registered as a worker, it means then that your ability to be considered or to have access to decent work or to operate under decent work conditions, you don't have that in Dike, you don't. And that is
I find it interesting sometimes, Dr. Khan, because it seems as though somebody will say, but that is not work.
Yeah.
Until they find themselves in a situation having to be an economist, balance books, and sometimes you're in so you're in a deficit budget, but you're not able to draw down from anywhere. Being able to be a sanitation worker, looking at clothes that need to be clean, just cleaning spaces. If you have children that you're dealing with on top of that, and that turns you into arbitrator, person dealing with food. If you were the teacher's assistant because you're home with them during COVID-19 or beyond, and sometimes when you have somebody who's been saying, "Nah, man, but all you do is take it," and then you find yourself in that situation for a day. Yeah. It's almost as though you want to jump out of yourself. You're singing the person's praises, and you have a different mindset. But what are some of the things that are needed to move it from mindset or personality to policy, so that these things is not if I feel like giving proper recompense or facilitating better working conditions, is that it is a thing and I don't have a choice. This is what I'm supposed to do and I need to do it.
I think a lot of it has to do, and you see, you use the word mindset, Dike. A lot of it has to do with the fact that there is the perception, and it is something that has been indoctrinated into generations and generations, that housework, women's work, unpaid work, it's not work. And not only that, it has been linked to women's reproductive roles. And as a result, there's that demarcation that, guess what? As a woman, even though I might be working, I still have the second shift to do when I come home if I don't have domestic help. You have to take up the mantle to be the cook, to be the one who is doing the laundry, doing all the other domestic aspects, including taking care of kids if you have. And this connection is something that is really hard to break. It is something that is, indoctrinated into us. But guess what? What we have to do is rethink cooking and washing and cleaning and doing laundry, all these domestic chores. These are not, this is not women's work. These are life skills. These are life skills that every person should have. So that whether you are by yourself, whether you're in a relationship, whether you have a family, it is not about who is doing what. Everybody has to pitch in. So being able to see it as life skills as opposed to a gender skill is one of the huge ways in which we can start to move out of that thinking. And the exploitative aspect of domestic work can start to get that shift that's needed. All right. But that indoctrination is something that is very, very hard, even up to today, to move away from. But it has
you say that, and I don't normally talk about business like this, but I think I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for the household that I grew up in. And let me say, big up my daddy, because his thought process was that both he and his wife, they taught. So he said he didn't understand why they would be doing the same thing when the day come. Right. And then there's a level of gender normative behavior when they reach home. So as to your point, the second shift. So that wasn't the way that he operated. And we would have learned by that, because actions many times they're caught as opposed to being taught. But I also want, in the 2.5 minutes that we have, for you to give a rundown of some of the events that will be taking place through the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. Thank you. Because I hear you all have things.
Yes, we do. So as we're talking about Clotil, in order to bring about greater awareness with what Clotil's work and the work of NUTE has been doing, we are organizing, and this is part of a large array of events that we are organizing for our third Caribbean World of Work Forum, which is from the 23rd to the 25th of July. But prior to that, let me start from the beginning with it. The conference is called The Future of Work, a Social and Solidarity Economy Approach. So we are seeing it in terms of exploring, the forum wants to explore the transformative potential of the social and the solidarity economy and highlights the critical role of labor, cooperatives, credit unions, and people's organizations in advancing economic and social justice across the Caribbean. So registration is actually open. You can take a look at our website in relation to that. But we have a number of events associated with this conference. On the 4th and 5th of July, we'll be having our Cooperative Village, which is really what we like to call a vibrant public showcase of innovation and enterprise, featuring cooperatives, credit unions, and people-centered businesses from across the region. On the 22nd of July, we'll be having a high-level roundtable, which is basically a leadership breakfast bringing together ministers, permanent secretaries, and institutional leaders for strategic dialogue on labor policy, governance, and regional cooperation. The conference itself takes place from the 23rd to the 25th of July. But just before that conference, on the 20th of July, we are having our Francis Walcott 5K Run for Social Justice. It starts at 6 a.m., ends at 10 a.m. It starts right here at the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. And we would love it if you can all participate and be part of this. Medals will be given to all participants and those who finish.
I'm saying thank you for that. Thank you for your presence in this conversation. And I'm saying thanks again because you very graciously accepted for us to have another conversation. So we're going to be doing that, and people will need to stay tuned to TTT for that, looking at intergenerational workforces. But Dr. Saadiqa Khan, Program Dean, Interdisciplinary Studies at the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies, thank you very much. And on behalf of the entire grouping at TTT Limited, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Remember, on a Wednesday, we have Woman Power Wednesday. So look out for that too. But thank you so much for tuning in.